You have reached the Geek Elite. Good luck.
Hey, Nerf herders.
You sure you want to go with that?
Hey, everyone?
There we go. More inviting.
Have you ever had a movie that you really wanted to love, but something holds you back?
Or one that you did love in spite of a flaw?
Well, I'm Case Aiken.
And I'm Sam Alisea.
And on Another Pass, we sit down with cool guests to look at movies that we find fascinating.
But flawed.
And we try to imagine what could have been done when they were made to give them that little push.
We're not experts. We just believe in criticism.
Constructive criticism.
Sure.
So come take another pass at some movies with us.
And every now and then, we can celebrate movies that did it on their own, too.
You can find us at certainpov.com or wherever you get your podcasts.
Pass it on.
Welcome back to another episode of VHS Gems, the Geek Elite Media podcast in which we open the treasure box of nostalgia and video cassettes and rewind and decide whether or not those movies of that time are worth the rewatch, whether or not they should be redone for a more modern age, or whether or not they should stay where they were and probably be forgotten. I'm Jessica, and joining with me is John.
Hello.
And today we are talking about the comedy UHF, which because you picked this one, I didn't even pick this out of the treasure box. I was just like, I have no time. Just pick one. I know you know some gems. So, and you picked this one. Oh, actually, you picked this one or Earth Girls Are Easy. And I just happened to be with my dad at the time, and I just told my dad, like, oh, hey, I got to pick between these two. What do you think? And he's like, UHF, like, instantly. Apparently, it was one of his favorite comedies. And my mom said, oh, he watched it all the time. So, which, yeah, when I was watching it, I was like, oh, yeah, I do remember this being on our TV a lot when I was growing up.
And it didn't fill you with a love of all things Weird Al?
I liked it. I like Weird Al though.
Yeah.
So so Weird Al is the lead character in UHF, and he plays a character named George who lives in his head by pretending he's the lead in a bunch of movies, basically, which is I think how a lot of people live in their head.
Pretty much,
yeah. And he, through some twist of fate, from a gambling uncle, he ends up being a manager of a small local TV station, Channel 62. And he decides to use that to, I don't know, create just crazy, wild and crazy shows that people end up enjoying.
Put his imagination to use, yeah.
Yes, including a kids show and a game show called Wheel of Fish, a science show, and just a bunch of other crazy random stuff.
Geraldo Rivera style talk show.
Yeah.
It's this thing is just so great. I can't wait to dive into it. This is just one of my favorite movies of all time. It
is very hilarious. It was fun watching it. And then I actually did watch it with my dad too, so it was fun watching it, like, and him knowing the lines before they came on, and it was great.
Stupid.
No, his big one, and he made me rewind too because I didn't catch it, was the supplies. Supplies. And I was like, oh my god, that was so dumb. It was so hilarious.
Oh, and one of our new reoccurring segments is, does it Star Wars? The answer is yes. It does.
Yes, it does. There was a Star Wars reference, or like two, I think. I know. I did hear the sound of the lightsaber. Was there any other reference that I totally
I think that
missed?
was pretty much it, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Surprising,
right.
because for a movie that was lampooning a lot of pop culture at the time, I figured they're like, you know what, we already did Indiana Jones. We can't do too many Lucasfilm
Yeah, we
properties here.
can't get Star Wars in there because the entire beginning of UHF starts with Weird Al being Indiana Jones in Indiana Jones. That one is Temple of
Raiders
Doom,
of the Lost
right?
Raiders of the
Was that
Lost Ark.
Raiders of the Lost Ark? Oh,
Yeah.
I always get those two beginnings different. Raiders of the Lost Ark.
If I remember correctly, that one was never called Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark. It was just Raiders of the Lost Ark. And it wasn't until the sequels that it started adding Indiana Jones to it.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I think, Raiders. I always thought Temple of Doom was just Temple of Doom, but no, maybe it is Indiana Jones Temple.
Yeah.
Which I was the crazy one that liked Temple of Doom the most.
That was the first one I saw because it was on constant rotation on HBO. So I thought it was great because that minecart sequence at the end was so cool.
It's fun. You just want like a roller coaster somewhere.
But then when I saw the others, I was like, wow, like Temple of Doom is kind of the odd duck out of that. But then once you see kind of like a greater, I guess, lore of Indiana Jones, and it kind of makes sense how it fits in, how like all these religious artifacts that have power seem to be like some sort of extraterrestrial or intradimensional origin.
Oh, so you're throwing in the fourth one too, Kingdom of the Crystal Skull and that. Yeah. Well, the whole thing is like, to me, Indiana Jones was always an archaeologist, and archaeology means more than just Christian religious stuff. So to me, Temple of Doom made perfect sense. And I don't necessarily love the multidimensional, but I like to think that things with belief have power. And so like, depending on how much people believe in it, I don't know.
Belief in something can give it power. Yeah, that's totally like the gist behind The Secret, I think. The power of positive thinking.
Yeah, the power of belief as like a thing. I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. Like it's a concept in like American Gods, which it's more in the show than it is in the book, I'm learning, where it's like, if you believe a god exists, then they exist. And so in the show, they have an episode where there's a mansion filled with a bunch of Jesus Christs, where there's like black Jesus and white Jesus and like every different version of Jesus, from like the Baptist version to the Catholic version.
The Korean Jesus from 21 Jump Street, the movie.
Or Korean Jesus, yeah. It's kind of like something along the lines of that. Like, belief is powerful, I guess. I don't know. That went really cheesy, didn't it? For a comedy movie.
Have you ever seen Drop Dead Fred?
No, well, maybe. I don't know. Because I thought I had never seen this, and then I watched it. I'm like, oh, I have seen this. So
okay. Yeah, this one, Drop Dead Fred, is kind of like about imaginary friends and how they're real as long as you believe in them. Think like Bing Bong from Inside Out.
Bing Bong. Oh, no, I don't want to.
But this is like more like adult oriented.
Okay.
It's a weird movie. This one and like Monkey Bone.
There's also is it What's Under Your Bed or The Boogeyman? I can't remember. It's a Disney Channel original, where it's all about that your imaginary friend actually does exist as long as you believe in them.
Yeah, basically that's what it is.
Yeah.
Is that it's real if you believe in it, and then the lack of belief, or as you grow up and stop believing in fantastical things, and they start to die out, and that kind of thing. It's interesting psychological thing, which I wasn't expecting to take in a movie like UHF to take place. But yeah, it's just one of the great things about this show is that you never know where we're going to end up.
Yeah. So, and it's filled with just so many shenanigans, so many hilarious people. So you got Weird Al, of course, and then you also have, what's his name? Michael. What's his real name? Because I always just call him Kramer. Michael Richards as Stanley Spadowski, the janitor who turns into a child show host. Spadowski's, what was it called? Spadowski's something.
The Spadowski's Clubhouse.
Clubhouse. That was it. Stanley Spadowski's Clubhouse. And it's just like not something I would let my children watch, but where they have the game of finding the marble in the oatmeal pile.
Yeah, so going back slightly to like kind of just a brief rundown of the plot, because this movie just has so many sight gags and just
Mhm.
moments that even upon this rewatch and knowing things were coming up, they still made me laugh.
Yeah.
I was like waiting for it, and I was telling my daughter like, "Hey, watch this, watch this," and I was like, the drink from the fire hose part,
Oh my gosh.
and I started laughing, and she just looked at me and rolled her eyes like,
That's not funny.
yeah,
No, I was laughing. I was cracking up, but
yeah,
that's my humor. I'm
or
like,
or the shop teacher that chopped his thumb off.
that one was just so good.
So over the top.
That was so good.
what
And that
really
was one too where my dad was like, "You better be paying attention to this."
Yeah.
You know, like,
See,
okay.
that scene is totally sold by the performance of Emo Phillips, which that's how he talks. Like, I don't know if that's a character he plays in real life, but that if you ever see him do, because he's a stand-up comedian,
Mhm.
that's how he talks all the time. Like he has this really
Mm.
weird cadence and delivery to all of his words, where it's almost funny just listening to him. It doesn't even really matter what he's saying. But so to give just a brief rundown of the story, so yes, you're right. Weird Al playing a character named George Newman. He gets fired from his job for basically daydreaming. Him and his best friend work at like a burger place. I think it was
Mhm.
like Big Edna's Burgers or something like that.
Yeah. They
And
get launched out by Big Edna when
yeah,
he gets fired.
it's like something out of like Matilda, like the Trunchbull just like chucks him
Yeah.
across the parking lot.
Yeah.
And so Weird Al also has a girlfriend played by Victoria Jackson, who at the time was a cast member on SNL. And
Right.
she, funny side story, she introduced Weird Al to Nirvana. And Weird Al was like, "Hey, can you introduce me? I really want to talk to those guys about making a parody of one of their songs." And
Mhm.
that's when he made "Smells Like Nirvana." And apparently, Kurt was really like digging it. He was like, "Oh, is it going to be a song about food?" Because at the time, it was kind of known for making parodies like "Eat It" and "Fat"
Mhm.
from like Michael Jackson songs. It was like, no, it's about how you can't understand the lyrics, and it's a really funny parody. Like it's the
I'll have to
video's
look it up.
funny, and oh yeah, it's if you're familiar with the "Smells Like Teen Spirit" video, the Weird Al version is perfect. It's so
Okay.
good.
Mhm.
But anyways, yeah. So his girlfriend's kind of like, like, when are you gonna do something with your life? She's not really harping on him, but she just wants him to do better.
Yeah, I think
And
the line she says is like, "I just wish you could find a job that you can use your imagination in," kind
yeah,
of thing.
so he's at his uncle's party of some sort, which leads to one of my first like favorite gags, where he's trying to feed Punch to the dog.
I thought that gag, I was like, what is he doing? He's just holding a dog and trying to ladle Punch, and the dog's just like not having it.
And he just drops the dog in the punch.
Hey, come here, George. Plop.
He's just
Poor
like,
dog.
okay. Oh man. So yeah, they basically said, "Here, why don't you go to this place and just like figure out what to do with it?" So him and his friend go to this what looks like a deserted TV station, except it's not deserted because the engineer's there, and he's like this
Mhm.
totally weird mad scientist looking guy.
Yeah.
And yeah, from there we just kind of get started. He's trying to figure out what to do with it, just basically slapping things together. When he gets his like hand at trying the kids show, one of the kids spits in his face, which I was like, oh,
Well, he wasn't that great at it.
he was not.
Yeah. You did skip over one of my favorite random gags, which is when he first pulls up to the station, there's like a homeless guy there, and he asks for change. And George holds out like change in his hand, and the guy counts out $1's worth of change, and he's like $1, and then puts like a wet and soggy $1 bill in his hand and takes the change. And I don't know why I thought that was the most hilarious thing ever, but that was hilarious.
He wasn't asking for a handout.
I just want to change for $1.
I think we're also technically skipping over another funny side gag, which is when he shows up to his apartment where he's roommates with his friend. Oh man, there's every sequence in that apartment.
There's so many gags. The
He
Twinkie
makes-
hot dog
yes.
cheese whiz was just
and dunked in milk.
and dunked in milk, and I gagged. I had to look at my phone during that scene. I was like, I don't like Twinkies though. So
I think if I'm not mistaken, Ambiguously Brown, which is one of the friends of Geek Elite Media, has a recurring section where they try disgusting or movie food or something like that.
Oh
And
my
I think
gosh.
they tried that. I think they
Did
did
they?
the
Oh,
Twinkies,
rest our souls.
Twinkie hot dogs.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that was
With
disgusting.
cheese whiz on top.
But it had so when they first arrived there, I guess they live either downstairs or side by side with the karate dojo, and that's when we first meet Getty Watanabe's Kuni, I think his
Yeah,
name is.
Kuni. Kuni was his name.
And yeah, so he's the
So
one who
stupid.
constantly keeps saying everyone is so stupid.
Yes.
And yeah, that guy's great. I love that dude every time I see him in anything.
Yeah.
And my whole favorite scene in that whole part is because another thing is that George is very absent-minded, so he's
Mhm.
constantly forgetting appointments and times. So he says, "Wait, what time is it?" Because he had a date with his girlfriend Cherry, and exactly at that same moment,
Somebody punches through the wall with a watch.
yeah, they punch through the wall, and he sees the time right in front of his face. It's like, "I'm late." I'm like, "Okay, not gonna acknowledge the fish just went through the wall." Okay, cool.
It happens
yeah.
every day, apparently.
Yeah. And Cherry's basically like, you know what? You have like one more chance, man. Like, there's only so much patience I have in this.
Mhm.
And yeah, so he starts running the TV show. It's kind of lackluster at first. Some really bizarre programming starts to take place, but throughout the movie, you also get like interspersed with commercials for shows, I guess, that are going to be presented.
Yeah.
This one comes a little bit later, but I have to talk about it now because I distinctly remember a point in time where I would see commercials like this all the time on TV.
Uh-huh.
This was very late 80s, but Spatula City.
Spatula City. That was hilarious. And the billboard, so I read the trivia, and apparently the billboard that they used for Spatula City, they actually did rent a billboard for a while, but they had to take it down because people would pull off at the nearest highway exit and ask the locals, like, where's Spatula City at? And the local businesses started complaining that they finally took the ad down.
Yeah, I always thought that was funny. And it's, you know what, this triggered a sort of existential crisis in me. There's a word for it. I can't remember off the top of my head what it's called. But you know when you look at a word and suddenly it doesn't make any sense to you, and it's like, this is a word? What? Spatula did that to me today. I was like,
that's a
wait,
word.
spatula?
Spatula does look like it should be like an ancient spell, you say, or something.
Yeah.
Spatula.
Why do we call these tools spatulas? Like, that's it made me really question everything I knew about language and comprehension for a few moments, and then it went away. Like, it was like deja vu for a moment. I was like, okay, I think I'm back now. And
I'm curious. Hold on. It is Latin in origin. From spatula.
Which is to turn over in the process of cooking. Is that what
it's rid of spathe. Hold on, now I gotta look up. Nope, I have no idea. Spathe comes from plants. Well, like a blade on a plant, like a palm. So it's like palm shaped. So spatula, I guess.
A spatula. Okay.
Spatula.
All right. Well, now I feel a little bit better that we got the etymology of it down.
Yeah, that was just a quick Google search. So if I ended up being wrong, blame Google. Etymology fans.
Well, Google is controlled by the government, so you have to like take it with a grain of salt.
Everything is controlled by the government.
Oh, snap. Not VHS Gems. We choose our own movies here.
Not VHS Gems.
Or do we?
Or do we?
Yeah.
Is it just ingrained in our heads to choose these things?
I just watched Josie and the Pussycats for the first time, and all of the things about subliminal messages was really cool.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I forgot about that. I think that's where I learned about subliminal messages. Subliminal messages the first time.
I think you've mentioned that before recently. Didn't we had a subliminal message conversation?
No, we did not. You could be having severe deja vu right now.
I could
be. The government is trying to correct itself because now
Matrix.
We have become aware.
The Matrix is resetting because we figured it out, yeah. This is what causes Mandela effect. I was like, wait, was it Bernstein or Berenstein?
I never knew how to spell it, so I was like, I didn't know that was even how it was spelled both ways. So I thought it was just Bearstin.
Bernstein.
Okay. There's a bunch of different programs. We already talked about Stanley Spadowski's Clubhouse. My
Real
personal
quick.
favorite. Oh no, what?
Since you brought up Stanley Spadowski, I just wanted to say Michael Richards' performance in this movie is so bonkers. Like
It's so bonkers. He's very much a Forrest Gump type character. So he's definitely not. Well, this whole movie is not politically correct, but
yeah.
But his relationship with the mop, because that was one of the conversations. My mom was like, "Oh, you watched it so many times," to my dad or whatever, and he's like, "Really? We watched it so many times?" He's like, "Who had the mop?" And she couldn't remember. And then
just because you watched it a bunch of times doesn't mean you retained any of it.
I know. And he was like, "Really, you don't remember?" And I was like, "Ah!" And I went like, "It's Kramer with the mop and his love for his mop and being a supposedly bad janitor when really it's just what was that bad guy's name? Fletcher, who owns Channel 8. Surprise, is the bad guy because he's a old white heterosexual male. So there we go. It's male.
But to be fair, he is a buffoon, so I think that's part of the point. Is that he's
Yeah. So he fires Stanley, the janitor, for not even doing anything wrong. He accused him of doing something that he didn't even do, basically throwing away an important file or whatever, and he didn't even do that. And he takes his mop away, and Stanley's like, "No, that's my mop." And the guy's like, "It's company property." And he's like, "My mop!" And he's just so fraught over this beautiful mop. And then he runs into George, and George hires him to be a janitor, and ends up that Stanley Spadowski is really good with children, and he takes over the child show that George was trying to do.
Yeah, takes it over after George basically has a emotional breakdown because he got dumped.
Yeah.
And his last performance as the kid show performer, though, was great. He just walks out, like, in his first appearance, he's super animated, jumping up and down, flailing his arms, beating up his friend
with a frying pan, which apparently in trivia that he was actually hit with a frying pan and had a split lip and everything. And they kept that take. They just did one take.
Yeah, I've heard that that's a thing in Hollywood where, like, if somebody does a scene where they get hurt, that they have to use that, or not they have to, but it's like an unwritten rule. And I was like,
it generally looks better, is I think what it actually is. It generally looks more hilarious, which it looks like to me like he did get hit because they kind of did a weird pan thing, and he like really went down and grabbed his lip, and I was like, wait, did he actually get hit? And sure enough, I read in trivia, I'm like, he did.
One of the best examples of that happening from what I've seen is in The Road Warrior, the first Mad Max movie. I think the first one was called Mad Max. I don't remember the exact thing. But anyway, there was this one stunt that they did. And keep in mind, this was very low budget back in like 78, 79 in Australia, somewhere in the middle of nowhere. And so the trick was going to be somebody was going to be launched over a car, flip, and then land on some kind of like safety matting or something.
Yeah.
Well, he was launched a little too hard. He went a little too low. His feet hit the top of like a car or something that was in the way.
Oh dear.
So that caused him to pinwheel.
Yep.
And it looks gnarly because you can tell that that's a real person that suddenly becomes a rag doll. And you don't see the landing. That all happens off camera. But apparently like that person broke his leg in like 3 places. And I mean, yeah, you can tell, like, oh no, like, if this was real, like, that person would have died. That was a really gnarly launch. But yeah, that's apparently a thing that happens. And assuming there was no fatalities, because that also has happened, unfortunately, in Hollywood stunts and other situations. It was like, okay, nope, we need to destroy all this evidence now. But if everything is okay in the end, then they'll be like, okay, we're using that one, because that was just, too good.
Yeah. Yeah. That's fair, but yeah.
But you were going to say something about that scene before I interrupted with Spadowski.
I have no idea. Oh, he does a really great. So, how he becomes the head of the kids is he does a very great monologue about how he has a new mop, even though he liked his old mop better. And it's like teaching kids a lesson about how, like, you gotta keep on pushing through the struggles of life, kind of thing. And it's great and it works. And my favorite thing about his character is that he insists on still staying a janitor. Like, he's a celebrity part-time, but still is polishing doorknobs at the station. We have also completely skipped over another female role. Fran the
Fran
nanny.
Drescher?
Yes, Fran Drescher. She was basically a receptionist when she started, but she wanted to do the news. And so she does the news. Their cameraman is a little person, so he doesn't quite get great angles, and
No, yeah,
she
everything
runs.
is from a low angle.
Yeah, everything's real low angle. But she's actually really good at her job. She's really good at doing the news. I mean, she's Fran, and she's hilarious. And
You know what though? She was speaking with her normal voice, and I found that kind of weird. I'm just so
yeah,
used
but
to hearing her as the
her
nanny.
normal voice isn't far from the nanny voice. She just like over enunciates on the nanny voice.
Yeah.
It's
But
like still her voice, just very over the top, I think. At least for me. And she runs into Channel 8 bozos who's like, broads don't belong in broadcasting. And they trip the little person because I do not remember his name and I feel bad for not
Roy
remembering his
Batty.
name. Thank you, Roy. And they trip Roy and...
Oh no, sorry. Roy Batty is a completely different person. Billy Barty is his name.
Okay.
Roy Batty is the head replicant from Blade Runner.
Oh, okay. Yep.
Yeah. You know, the only reason I remember it was Billy Barty to begin with, though, is because he played Wildor in Masters of the Universe, the He-Man movie.
I have not seen the He-Man movie.
Good. That movie's awful.
Okay, I haven't seen a He-Man. I think I've watched a little bit of the show, maybe like in passing as a kid. I am currently watching She-Ra, though, on Netflix, and I'm probably going to watch that new He-Man, too, after I finish it. Not that they're connected, but I wanted to finish She-Ra first before I moved on to He-Man. So, it's great. It makes you cry. I don't know why everything has to make you cry nowadays, but it makes you cry. Yes, it does. It gets really emotional in season 3, in season 4, and season 5 is not looking up either.
I was going to say, wait, is that the one that kind of looks like My Little Pony?
Yes, it is. It looks like Just Your Average Kids Show, but the last 5 Just Your Average Kids Show has made me bawl like a baby every once in a while. So I guess that's what we're teaching kids, is how to feel things.
Well, yeah, I think
which is great,
we went through
but
a
I
period
don't need to feel things anymore.
Well, no more than normal, yeah.
No more than normal. I cried twice today because of a cartoon.
Oh, yeah?
A cartoon!
I gotta admit, the last episode of The Bad Batch, I was a little bit like, oh.
Don't tell me yet. Don't tell me yet. I haven't watched it.
It feels like the end of an... You know what? It's not... Well...
I already know what happens. It was already spoiled for me. Well, I mean, I know the big thing that happens, but whatever. I mean, thank you, Twitter. Thank you so much. It's all the Star Wars stuff I follow. It's my fault, but still. Back to UHF. Because we always have to go on a really great tangent. It's not VHS Gems unless there's 5 tangents. But Fletcher ends up losing in ratings because UHF is like kind of like that channel made for the people of the town kind of thing. And so they get really good ratings. They get number 1 in the ratings, and all of a sudden Fletcher is like, I need to have it shut down. And just at that time, the uncle who owns the station, he loses in his gambling and he owes $75,000. And he needs to get $75,000 by 10 o'clock on Friday in like 2 days, I guess. And Fletcher is willing to pay the bill and then just knock down the channel station because he can't technically legally own 2 channels, which kind of confused me because if you're an audience member from Yuma, like we are, you know that all of our news stations are owned by the same person, even though it's 3 different channels. And they often use the same exact stories. And they're all not really great at journalism. So it's wonderful news here in Yuma.
So tell us how you really feel.
I know. It's like, it was literally to the point where a few years ago, I was like, I'm going to go get a journalism degree and like create my own station. I'm done with this, but that didn't happen. So it's just a fantasy. But Fletcher offers to buy it, to shut it down, but the aunt decides to convince the uncle to give George a chance to raise up $75,000. They have a massive telethon. They seem to be getting there. Fletcher does some no good stuff, kidnaps Stanley Spowski. You get epic fight scenes. It's wonderful. And of course, they end up raising $75,000 because of a mistake that Fletcher made. And it's great.
Yeah, I mean, we're definitely skipping over a lot, but this is a movie that's just, it's built on just all these tiny little moments.
It's so much. Like, I'm trying to not go through the entire movie moment by moment because you might as well just go watch the movie. but yeah, in between there, you get the engineer manages to put a camera in Fletcher's office to be able to spy on him. And George's girlfriend, Terry, right? Or Tori?
Terry.
Yeah. Terry goes and manages to get Fletcher to basically say that he hates the town, thinks it's full of a bunch of idiots and all that. And you get just a wonderful fight scene as Stanley Spadowski is stuck in the warehouse and he sees his mop. And he fights to get his mop, and he fights with his mop, which is where you get the one Star Wars reference of it sounding like a lightsaber, and fights his way through. And then Cooney and his ninjas come in and save the day by hiding in a supply closet. And when the supply closet gets opened by the bad guys, they say supplies instead of surprise, and it's the best thing ever.
It's so good.
It's so
we also
good.
missed a prior to that when George or Weird Al finds out that they're holding Stanley Spadowski hostage.
Mhm.
He gets enraged, and then we're treated to a whole fantasy sequence where he becomes Rambo.
Yep. That one was great. I have never seen Rambo. I don't want to see Rambo, which I like old action films, but I don't know why, like Rambo, I'm like, I don't want to watch this at all.
This is basically Rambo, though.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I definitely don't want to watch this. My mom went to go see Rambo in theaters when it was out, and she walked out in 10 minutes, she said.
I mean, yeah, they're not fun movies unless you just like seeing people getting killed.
Yeah, and she does not. She doesn't like seeing people get tortured or killed, and she's like, yep, I walked out of it. And I was like, cool. So, but yeah, seeing this, I was like, is this really Rambo? Like, this looks silly. But then again, I did watch Expendables 3. So, there's that. But at least that one's not just about killing people, I guess.
Well, the first Rambo, which is actually called First Blood, again, with the whole first part of the movie having a different name than the rest of the series, was actually a very somber story because it's about a vet returning from like the Vietnam War and not really being welcome in the town he's in, and for some reason the police kept harassing him, and he's just trying to mind his own business, but they trigger his PTSD, which at the time wasn't really called that. It
wasn't known. Yeah,
his fighting instinct basically just gets turned on again, and he ends up, everything he does is basically in self-defense, really, but ends up causing some bloodshed, yeah. And but then every Rambo movie after that just basically became like a murder fantasy. Like every person that wished they could go to war and just slaughter countless like military or guerrilla people like it was some kind of wish fulfillment for that.
Hmm.
Kind of like how Death Wish was a story about, getting revenge for brutal murder. And then it just became, I'm just going to go out and start shooting criminals. That was,
Yeah.
yeah, it was a very 80s thing for some reason. I was like, crime was going up. People were starting to get scared of minorities more. And I was like, wouldn't it be cool if we could just go out and shoot all these people and not get in trouble for it? That's basically what that became. So whether that's people in the jungle across the sea or people in the ghetto, that's kind of became a thing. For some reason.
Yeah, around the time that we were actually doing the war on drugs and all that, and doing bad propaganda and stuff on drugs and where they come from and all that stuff. So, yeah, that makes sense that it's what would be a good chunk of the 80s when it comes to action.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, I was not too impressed with the whole Rambo line. I was very much impressed with something we kind of glazed over with the fever dream. Well, not fever dream, but George has a dream in which he dreams up Money for Nothing as being the Beverly Hillbillies theme song. And it's just beautiful, mainly because Money for Nothing is like one of my top songs to listen to every once in a while. So I was like, ooh, and yeah, it's like pretty much the whole song, just like the music video. Well, it's Weird Al. It's Weird Al doing Money for Nothing as the Beverly Hillbillies theme song. And it's beautiful.
Which is great. Just Weird Al just doing what he does best is parodying songs and making them really, really clever. Just that's one of the things I've always admired about him. So a little history. Usually I do this kind of thing earlier in the podcast, but my exposure to Weird Al was on VH1. I would watch VH1 in the morning before going to school back in the late 80s. And I thought Beat It was coming on because I was familiar with that song. Michael Jackson was kind of big back then. But then I saw that it was this white guy wearing the red jacket. And I was like, what? And he starts singing about eating food. The song was called Eat It. And I remember I was getting ready to leave and then it just kind of stopped in my tracks and I just had to watch this whole thing. So I was like, what is this?
Well, I'm going to be late to school today.
And yeah, so that kind of stayed fresh in my mind. And then I realized, oh, there's a separate celebrity or musician or whatever performer that does this. Then I started seeing more of his songs, like A Sturgeon, Fat. What were some other videos that he had out at the time? And then I realized, oh, he was on the Transformers movie soundtrack. He had a song on there called Dare to Be Stupid. Now, that one wasn't a parody. Okay. Yeah, it wasn't a parody of a particular song, but it was more of a style parody. He basically made it in the style of Devo.
Okay. All right,
and
that makes sense.
Devo has gone on record, I think, on the behind the music for Weird Al. The one of the people behind Devo was like, yeah, I really liked how he did that and the tones that he got. And I'm kind of jealous, actually, because he did us as good, if not better than we do us.
Yeah, he's really good at that. He really becomes... So my intro to Weird Al was a Disney CD I had, which I can't remember the title of the Disney CD, but he did a song called... Oh, what do they call it? Oh, I can't remember. The day the Anakin became... The day the Jedi died? I cannot remember, but...
Oh, the saga begins?
The saga begins, yes, but it's the to the tune of the American Pie.
American Pie song, yeah.
The American Pie song. It's a tune to American Pie, and it tells the story of Star Wars Episode 1, of little Annie meeting Qui-Gon Jinn and all that. And that was probably the first... it can't be the first Weird Al song I heard, but it's the first song that I heard that I liked and played on repeat and then discovered more Weird Al from. So
yeah, that one was particularly good because that was right around, I want to say, 2000. So it
Yeah.
came out, I think, a little bit after episode 1 premiered.
Mm-hmm.
And it was so good because the lyrics so perfectly captured essentially episode 1. Like the whole plot of the movie is in the song,
Yeah.
but it's done to the tune of American Pie.
I just generally, when I try to sing American Pie, I always end up saying Weird Al's lyrics instead.
Oh yeah, me too. I know all those lyrics by heart.
Yeah, it's like, bye, bye, Mr. Anakin guy. I probably can't sing too much, unfortunately, because copyright and all that, especially since Disney owns Star Wars now. So, but still, it's hilarious. It's great. Go look it up.
It's almost like it was meant to be because the lyrics of the song literally begin with a long, long time ago. I was like, how could that not just write itself? A little side note. Apparently, the cassette for one of his last albums that he released, called Poodle Hat.
Okay.
I think that album, or that was one of the last cassettes to be released when they were phasing out cassettes entirely.
Oh,
So
wow.
it became kind of a rarity. And apparently, it can go for a lot of money if you have one in like decent condition. Like I remember, again, going back to Ambiguously Brown. I don't know why he's coming up so much recently, but he was talking about on one of our network podcasts, the Jukebox Vertigo, about how he found it at I think it was like a Goodwill. And he posted it somewhere. It's like, hey, look what I found out at Goodwill today. It was like Reddit or something. And people immediately started flooding his DMs with like, hey, how much you want for that? I'll give you like $100 for that.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So he did some research and was like, oh shit, like people really like are looking for this on cassette because it's like a collector's item. Like they didn't make a lot of them and it was discontinued shortly thereafter. So
wow.
Yeah. If you run into a Weird Al copy of a Poodle Hat on cassette, keep it because that could be like a decent chunk of change to the right collector.
Huh. Neat. I'm gonna go check Goodwill. No, I'm not. So yeah, let's see. Anything else we missed? So Fletcher ends up losing the bet. Well, he ends up losing. The towns want for him to even win because the engineer guy ends up, showcasing what he said about the townspeople. And he digs his own grave when he gives the first homeless man, he gives him a penny, but apparently it's a very rare penny. And the guy cashes it in for a couple $1,000s, ends up being able to finish the rest of $75,000, and also buys himself a Rolex, which he shoves in Fletcher's face because Fletcher wanted a Rolex. And it was great.
Yeah, there was a scene earlier where it was his birthday and his son gave him, I guess, not a Rolex, some other kind of watch.
Some other kind, yeah.
Which he got super mad about. Real quick side note of trivia. The son of Fletcher is played by John Paragon, who was famous in the 80s for being part of the Groundlings. That's where people like Pee Wee Herman, Elvira, Kathy Griffin, they all came from that group. And John Paragon played Zombie, the genie, in Pee Wee's Playhouse.
Okay.
So yeah, I thought it was kind of interesting to see him in something not wearing blue makeup. I was like, hey, that's Zombie. No, not Zombie. What's his name? Wasn't Zombie the robot? What was his name in the show? No, it was Zombie, wasn't it?
I have no idea.
Yeah, because the robot was, I think the robot was Conky. That's what it was.
Conky. That makes sense. I don't know. I remember the Pee Wee movie. That's
he wasn't
about
in that. The movie was so not like the show. It was weird.
Yeah, I got that. But I do not remember the show really at all. And the movie was so weird to me. I would say we should add it to VHS Gems, but I kind of don't want to because I kind of don't want to watch it again.
Well, I think that was Tim Burton's first live action movie also.
Was it? Oh, gosh.
Yeah.
That makes
On the
sense
strength of that, he got Beetlejuice, and then that led him to Batman.
Right. Okay.
That was a weird trajectory for someone to take.
That was pretty weird.
That was the 80s though.
So back to we also forgot the other show, Raoul's Wild Kingdom.
That show Wow.
which
Even as a kid, I was like, can you do that on TV? Like that was
I thought that too when I was watching it, because the guy straight up throws poodles out of a window to see if they can fly, and surprise, they don't.
no. I was like,
And
well, maybe this one
he
can.
has a monkey in his drawer. And I was like, oh, there's a monkey. It was weird. But I think in trivia I read that I think the actor died while
Yeah.
filming
Yeah,
or
like very
something.
shortly
Like didn't die
before.
while filming, but like during filming he had
Yeah.
passed away. And they couldn't, like, they were going to do more with his character, but then they couldn't do that because he passed away. I don't remember why or anything, but
Maybe because of
it's
all that
like,
cruelty to animals.
I mean, yeah. Well,
Although
I mean, it
I gotta
wasn't
admit,
real, but
I also really laughed hard when he shook the ant farm. That was just so messed up.
that one was kind of a little funny because, like, what kid hasn't wanted to shake an ant farm? Just like, they don't like
Yeah.
it when you do this.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, no, they
Like,
don't.
oh, they're really
Oh,
mad now.
oh gosh. Um, I still like, my favorite thing was the Wheel of Fish with Cooney, where he gets to call people he's so stupid, and then
Yeah.
but the fish. I was watching it. I was like, those fish look real. And
They
on
had to
this
have been.
giant wheel, oh, they were. I read it in trivia. Apparently, the fish were real. They were bought at the local fish market in the early morning. They set it up at 6 in the morning, on this just massive wheel with different kinds of fish on it, and they didn't get to film that scene till 4:30 in the afternoon.
Oh.
The room was unair conditioned, and George and Weird Al said it was pretty bad smelling, as
Ah.
fish would be when they're sitting
I
in an
mean,
unair
yeah,
conditioned
they
room on a wheel.
they don't look fresh at all when
They
you see them in the movie, and some of them are not secured very well. So as the wheel spins, you see
They
part of their
kind of
body or their tail
shake and
flapping.
rattle. I was like, is that
Yeah.
real fish? That's what made me think it was real, because you see him flopping, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like, did they really just tape fish to a wheel and spin it?
Yep. That's exactly what they did.
And then you get to choose between the red snapper to keep or get what's in the box. And she chooses the box. And what's in the box? Nothing. You stupid. Just, oh my gosh. I don't know, just making fun of all those silly shows like that where you make a choice and one's the bad one. And I don't know. She could have had a snapper. Could have had a
Yeah.
red snapper. That's a good fish.
I don't know if I've ever had red snapper.
I feel like I've had sushi of red snapper, maybe. I don't know. I don't know, actually. I'd have to look up what red snapper is, because I did not recognize it.
I know I've had a lot of catfish
snapper.
in my day.
Yes, I have had snapper sushi.
Mm.
Madai.
Well, I'm gonna have to order something like that next time. And then right before eating it, tell somebody, "You so stupid."
So stupid. There we go. But so what was your like favorite of the programs that were available on UHF station 62?
Well, favorite of the programs. I was gonna bring up the Conan one. It's not my favorite, but it pissed me off because he's using a Scottish claymore instead of a broadsword. And I was
Conan
like,
the Librarian.
yeah. I mean, that's a great pun, but just that little detail. There's actually a couple of details that really bug me in the movie like that, where I'm like,
Oh dear.
okay, like it's nitpicking because like so during the Rambo sequence, for instance, right before the end of that whole fantasy segment, somebody shoots him
Mhm.
and he catches the bullet in his mouth, but it's not just the bullet, it's the whole thing, it's the with the shell casing and everything.
Yeah,
And I was
it's
like,
not what would come out of a gun.
yeah, no,
Yeah.
it was like, okay, like I know that
That's really
somebody in the
nitpicking, but
production
yeah.
and yeah, like again, the Scottish claymore, I was like, dude, that's so not the right weapon, but
Wow.
okay. Um And but as far as like favorite shows, I don't know if we ever actually get to see anything happen with it, but I kind of was intrigued by the engineers, like World of Science or whatever it was called.
Yeah, the engineer who ends up being an alien from another
Yeah,
planet. My job
which
here
just
is done.
yeah, he just steps away, his face transforms, which actually reminded me of another movie, which I think they covered in the first season of VHS Gems called My Stepmother's an Alien.
Mm-hmm.
That is a very messed up movie, by the way. I
Sounds.
distinctly remember watching it when I was a child. That is not a kids movie. It is
Hmm.
it is definitely a comedy, and there's kids in it, but there's some pretty wild, like sexy stuff going on in there that I was not prepared for. Um,
Okay.
but yeah, it has kind of a similar scene where like aliens kind of just like, okay, my job here is done, and like they turn into energy and fly off into space or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I don't know. I like that science guy for some reason. He was really cool. Um, but as far as the shows, what was a good one that we haven't talked about already? I'm trying to remember.
It could be one that we have talked about, and it's just your favorite.
Well, I can tell you which one was not my favorite for sure.
Okay. All
That was
right.
the Gandhi 2 sequence.
Oh yeah, that one was kind of a bit much.
That one took all of the things we were talking about those 80s revenge movies and just put Gandhi as the main character. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that was the director of the movie
Oh really?
who was
Huh.
very, very clearly in brown face makeup because did not look natural.
Mm.
Um, I mean, I guess if I had to pick anything in particular that I really liked, it must be that Spatula City commercial just because I still remember it so distinctly. And like I said, I remember growing up in the 80s and watching, like, I think it was KTLA. They had a lot of
Mhm.
commercials from Los Angeles in there for some reason.
Yeah.
Because I grew up in California, so it was like, makes more
Mhm.
sense over there. But yeah, like, there was so many of these, like, you could tell they were like local affiliate quality commercials.
Yeah.
And it was basically that. It was like a big advertisement of like some kind of a billboard. They showed you the outside of the building,
Like
and
Garlic
then
World.
something. Yeah, like I can't remember specifically what those places. I think some of them were mattress stores, probably.
Yeah.
Like Mattress World probably was the name of one of them. But yeah,
I'm dating the
literally,
Mattress King.
yeah. So yeah, it's the fact that they nailed that tone, that style so well,
Yeah.
which is what Weird Al is good at. He knows how to nail something so exact that it's like,
Well, even in the sorry to interrupt, but in the initial first Indiana Jones scene, I'm watching it and I was like, did they straight up use the set from it? Because it
no,
looked exactly like it.
what
Like
it
it
did.
really looked exactly like it.
I
What did
think
they
they were
use?
using miniatures actually for a lot of those.
Really?
Because
Okay, that
yes,
makes sense.
because so it weirded me out because weirdo. Um,
Uh-huh.
uh, it weirded out me out that
Weird Al me out.
I was watching it. This is the first time I've seen the movie in well over a decade at least. I mean, it's been a
Mm-hmm.
while. Even though this movie, I saw it so much as a kid that it's ingrained in my memory, I haven't seen it in a good chunk of time. And I saw this in like a really good high definition transfer, apparently,
Mm-hmm.
that was streaming. During those sequences in the first part, especially when he's running away from the big ball,
Yeah.
um, you could see where there was rear projection happening
Yeah.
because I could see like the pattern of the movie screen
Huh.
in the background. They had kind of like a wavy, I don't know what you call that design, but it's like if you've ever seen a movie screen up close, it's not just one continuous white sheet. Basically, it's like it's got little like
Yeah.
octagonal shapes or hexagonal, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I could see those, and I was like, "Oh, wait a minute!" And then I realized, "Oh, wait, that looks like it's a miniature set, and he's just kind of looking like he's running through it." But he
Yeah.
wasn't actually in there. Well, I mean, some of those sets are, yeah, he was definitely in a real location when he's
Mm-hmm.
getting the Oscar off of the pedestal,
The
which was
pedestal,
great, by
yeah.
the way. That was a good sight gag too. That in the Golden Idol was a, an
Oscar,
Oscar,
yeah.
which is something he was never going to get for something like this. But it's kind of
But
a meta
still.
commentary.
Yeah.
And I love too the fact that he's doing the whole Indiana Jones thing where he's calculating the weight and all of that, and then he just says screw it and just grabs it.
Screw it, just grab it anyway. Yeah,
Yeah,
that was great.
he's really good at that. So I don't know. I guess if I had a favorite thing, it must be that. It's got to be the Indiana Jones
Indiana
thing
Jones.
too. Then,
All
just
right.
because it was so well done and like they paid so much attention and like loving detail to it.
All right. Yeah, it was a wonderful sequence. A great start. Just and so many gags, one right after the other, with the wrong way signs and everything. Well, I mean, this whole movie was a gag after a gag after a gag, but
one other sight gag I really enjoyed for some reason, there's just certain things that stick out to me.
Mhm.
It's when Stanley Spadowski is being held hostage and he's trying to escape for the first time. He grabs a staple gun from a desk and starts like shooting staples behind him. And then like the guy's got him all over his face. Yeah, I don't know why that made me laugh so much. And it's
yeah,
still,
that's great. No, the Conan the Librarian chopping somebody who had overdue books in half was really quick and great. It was great.
I will say, I remember distinctly because I worked at a library for a while. I would occasionally say, "Don't you know the Dewey Decimal System?"
Don't you know the Dewey?
And nobody ever got it. I was like, "Oh, I'm definitely dating myself right now." And people just thought I was being a jerk, saying like, "You go find it." I was like, "No, I'm quoting a movie. It's funny."
I'm quoting a movie. Here we have it. Over here, you can rent it.
Everybody else was too young. I was like, I wasn't the oldest person there, but like nobody appreciated it.
This came out in 1989. It's only a year older than me.
Most of these people hadn't been born yet either.
Oh, okay.
And they probably didn't have fathers that watched it constantly too.
Yeah, that is fair. I was like, I don't know. I probably wouldn't recognize that line, but I would have recognized it if you showed me the picture of the movie. I'd be like, oh, right, that. But yeah, so. And yeah, the gag with what's his name? Emo something, where he cuts off his finger. Emo Phillips, and he cuts off. Yeah, cuts off his finger, and blood just squirts everywhere. And he says the line. It's like, oh, I think my face is red, and it's like he's embarrassed, but he
like, actually has face red,
fake blood all over his face.
The way he talks is so weird. If again, as a companion to this, I would recommend, if you can find it, it's probably on YouTube. Mm-hmm. Watch the behind the music for Weird Al, because they talk to a lot of people from UHF, and Emo Phillips shows a check that he received for like 13 cents. Because he still gets residuals from UHF anytime they play it on like cable TV or something.
13 cents? That's
He was like, this is the gift that keeps on giving. Every so often I'll get one of these in the mail, and it's like pay to the order of Emo Phillips, 13 cents or whatever. I was like, wow. Really getting those back end deals.
That's wonderful. All right. So one more question. If you could have a show on a random local channel, what would that show be? Which, granted, I'm saying this as we are podcasters, but still, what would the show be?
Oh, it would have to be VHS Gems, just in a video format.
Format of VHS Gems.
Yeah. I mean, we'd have to have like Between Two Ferns kind of background where there's like maybe a copy of the actual VHS of the movie we're talking about, if we can find one.
If we can find one. We have to show clips too. Like, we need to get...
Yeah, there'd have to be a little bit of editing involved.
To be able to show clips and editing, and maybe getting special guests of random side characters.
But we would actually have to do, if we do like, what's the drink for this movie? Or let's try that Twinkie hot dog from the movie. We would have to do that on screen also.
No, you can have fun with that. You and the special guest can do that crap. Actually, no, if I'm honest, I totally would have been talked into doing it. But still, I actually do have a show that I would do. I feel like I would have a show to teach critical race theory to children.
Oh,
Since our schools are not going to be allowed to do that anymore, I think I really want to have a show in which you teach history in a critical manner. And
you know what?
well, not
And
critical, but in a realistic, like, this is what happened. This is this person's truth. This is that person's truth. Do with
all
it
right,
as you
I
will.
want to change my answer then.
Oh, okay.
Since you actually had a good one,
It's actually
okay. In that case, I want to have like a Stanley Spadowski Clubhouse type of show, but
uh-huh.
instead of like those wacky shenanigans, we actually talk about things like how to do your taxes, how the Federal Reserve works, like these really how to have like good credit.
How
I
to
want to
have
have some,
good credit. Yeah,
yeah,
that'd be great.
from a kid's standpoint, where like it'd be like Schoolhouse Rocks, where you'd have like a
Uh-huh.
little animated segment, and like your W4 is singing like, "I'm a W4, and this is what I'm for."
Aw, cute.
It would be cool, yeah. It was
It
like,
would be cute, yeah.
so I've actually thought about that. I was like, man, what am I passionate about? Maybe teaching like the next generation not to make the same mistakes I did. I was
Yeah.
like, well, what did I not know that I could have learned as a younger person? Okay, how to maintain good finances, how to like do this and that. I was like, oh yeah.
I
So
remember when my dad and my uncle explained to me how banks work, and it literally blew my mind that banks were allowed to exist. I was
yeah,
like,
dude,
what do you
it's
mean they
insane.
just use my money, but I still have my money, but then they can use my money, and then if they crash, it's because they used all my money and they can't give me back my
No,
money,
they
but
they
it's
can
my money.
use your money to pretend they have more money and
Yeah.
make imaginary money that they hope that they'll be able to actually have later on, as long as nobody takes the money out at the same time. I actually learned a lot about finances from Mary Poppins, which actually came up earlier today in a different conversation entirely. But the
Yeah,
fact
on
that
Twitter,
like,
it's one of your comfort films.
oh yeah, yeah. Um And yeah, I love the fact that a little boy basically caused like a market crash like, in Mary Poppins, um,
Yeah,
which is
that's
I was like, I
great.
don't understand. And then I realized, oh, because everybody wanted to withdraw, which means that the bank wouldn't have any further equity, so they couldn't do any more loans, which is how the bank actually makes money. And I was like, whoa, like there's a lot going on here. Which
Whoa.
makes sense now that I know that P.L. Travers' father was a banker. And I was like, okay, well, she definitely knew a lot about that then. But um,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a whole fascinating thing how like pop culture seeps into real life and back and
Mhm.
forth.
Oh yeah. All right. I like that show idea then. More people should know how to handle financing and taxes and all that stuff. So, and probably more people should get involved in their government as well.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I say this as a person who like has yet to get involved with my local government, even though I keep on being like, I should join a committee.
I should go to PTA meetings.
Yeah, that you could do. Make change. Speak up for the teachers. You are a parent.
It's apparent I'm a parent.
You are a parent. All right. Anything else for UHF? It's hilarious,
Yep,
fun
it's a
time.
classic. I don't think you can remake this at
No.
all. Like it's such a time capsule of a movie, and it's like it's
I don't
so
think
good in
TV
and of
works
itself.
that way anymore as well too.
No,
So,
definitely not. Yeah, like UHF doesn't exist anymore. I think, as far as I know, like everything, all the TV signals are digital now, so it
mhm.
wouldn't even make sense.
Yeah.
Um, but it definitely. I'm trying to think if there's something that's like a spiritual successor to this movie or along the same lines. Um, I want to say Mystery Science Theater 3000 maybe was kind of like a good companion to this, in that it's got kind of like the independent broadcasting thing. Because the way that Mystery Science Theater started is that it basically was a UHF type of show
Uh-huh.
that essentially broke out and became its own thing.
Yeah.
So,
I love that.
um,
I love Mystery Science Theater.
yeah, that's
That's why I talk during films.
yeah. No, yeah, me too. I actually like that. I like it when they do, like, I like watching movies with commentary back when that was more popular, because I like hearing things about it while it's happening. I'm one of those weird people. I like having conversations, and that's why a lot of people don't like me at movie theaters a lot, because
Mm.
It doesn't matter who's next to me. I want to comment on something that just happened.
I just want to crack jokes. That's all I want to do.
Same. I was like, I remember.
I went to go see Batman versus Superman by myself, and I nearly died not talking to the person that sat next to me. Like, I was just like, I had to annoy the crap out of her. I feel so bad for that random lady, but I was literally like leaning over in the side, just like hand to my mouth, like, don't say it. Don't say Martha.
I might, if I have to bite my tongue, I might start like tweeting during a movie next time, like I was doing for a while.
Oh no! You were doing it.
I was, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Oh yeah. No, this is a good movie, cult classic. Like it, love it. Everyone should watch this at one point. It's a very specific kind of humor, but if you listen to this kind of podcast, then I think it'd be right up your alley anyway.
All right. Yeah, I agree. It's a great movie, of its time movie. It's hilarious. It's gag after gag after gag, and they don't necessarily make sense, but they make you laugh. And we live in a world in which we could occasionally use a really good, ridiculous laugh.
Yep.
Yeah. UHF, 1989. John, where can people find you if they want to learn about how to properly fill out their taxes?
Well, first I need to learn myself, but once I get all of that taken care of, you can find me on Twitter. I am at MagicBollocks.
Yep. And if you would like to teach, or if you think that we should teach history as it actually was, instead of trying to sugarcoat it for children, you can reach me as at JMBaileyWrites on Twitter. You can find this podcast and other podcasts that we are in, such as The Geeks Watch, on geekelitemedia.com. You can also find Geekely as at geekelitemedia pretty much anywhere. Facebook.com/geekelitemedia. We do have a Patreon page as well that will be /geekelitemedia. So if you have a couple extra dollars running around, become a Patreon and you can do surveys and decide what we talk about and get early access to shows. And you can also get surprise only for Patreon shows and gags and stuff like that on our Patreon page. At least if you could be totally awesome and just like and subscribe to whatever you are listening to this podcast on. Feel free to also comment to us. We'll always get back to you wherever you're listening to. It is a huge help for the algorithms and gets us out there a bit more. This has been VHS Gems from Geek Elite Media, and always remember to geek out.
This concludes our broadcast.